All right. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, let's see here. Looks like my mic is live. Anybody in the chat? I'm so out of practice with this. See if I can get my boys to come in here at least. This is so far away from me. Let's see. Nick Infante, 1992. What's up? Why can I not? Can I not join the chat from there? Hold on a second. Oh, there it is. Why is it down there? Let's see if I can fix that. I'll bring the chat. Oh. It's been so long since I've been on here. All right, chat box. Bring that up so it's not all the way in the back. It's behind everything. Ooh. I don't know if that works. Maybe I should leave it down there because you can't really see it. And I'll let it scroll up. That's what I'll do. I'll leave it down there. But then... Alright, what we got here? Who we got here? Good Money Now. What's up? T. Bruce Kent's up in here. Can you guys hear me good? Let me know if my audio is good. Alright, I'm gonna move that. Wonder why it's... Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that for now. I'll fix it for next time. J Biggs up in here. What up? What up? Anybody can confirm my audio. That would be great. You good, says J Biggs. All right, all right. I had to get back on this horse, man. It's been a long time since I streamed. The volume is good, says Good Money Neil. All right. Just give it a couple minutes. I don't expect to have a huge audience because I haven't done this in a while, but not that I've ever had a huge audience, but I get a few of you guys up in here. Oh, I just closed that. I didn't mean to do that. Bring it back. Bring it back. All right, there we go. All right, no audio. Oh, I'll just use my phone. Although I'm on the wrong account. Switch my account. But can you not? I don't think you can see it from... Yeah, it's not like I'm subscribed to myself, so I can't see it from my phone. Unless... Let me see. It doesn't show me live? Yeah, it doesn't show me live. That's weird. Well, I guess it's not weird because I'm on the account, so... The volume... Oh, yeah, I read that already. Alright. Just give me a second, guys. I'll switch back to my secondary account so I can at least see what's going on in the chat. I don't have to reach all the way over there. Alright, good. I got it. Alright. Oh, 12 folks. Alright. That's more than I thought I'd have. That's cool. Alright. So... I don't even know what this is. Hold on. Oh, yeah. So Nintendo Switch 2 Watch, which is kind of a video I just did. And Sega Dreamcast turns 25. Is that tomorrow? Yeah. Monday. Wow. It's been 25 years. Wow. 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 Since the launch day. of the Dreamcast. Did I say PlayStation? I feel like I said PlayStation. That's weird. Um, Dreamcast turns 25. Mañana. Why am I getting... Okay. All right. All right. Yep, that's right, J Biggs 99.99. And so let me just start with my premise of, because we're gonna start with the Dreamcast stuff, then we'll get into Nintendo. So what's up, everybody? Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. I was hoping I wasn't gonna be sitting here by myself, but uh, either way, it was gonna be a practical thing for me to do. I needed to get back on this horse and pause. Because I haven't streamed in a while, and every week I've been trying to get back to streaming for like 2 months now, but every week I come up with an excuse to not stream, and I didn't want to do that again. I was just like, you know, and this is like a really bad weekend for me, so I was like, oh, here's another excuse for me not to do it, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it, whatever. I'm just gonna deal with it. Join the Nintendo Fight Clubbers because Mr. T says so. Foos. And yes, I'll be getting back to that as well. I feel like I've said that before, but the stuff that you guys, my older subscribers, older followers, the stuff that you're used to seeing, I'm getting back to that. I got my creative juices back, and I'm ready to create. Yeah, pause. And I'm ready to get back into that kind of stuff. It'll be different, but it'll be similar. But yeah, I can't believe I'm sitting here 25 years after the launch of the Dreamcast. So let me start with the Sega Saturn. Dreamcast is one of my favorite consoles. Got it day one. Yep, same here. Good money. But I'll get into that. All right, so I was a Sega dude probably from day one because I actually got a Sega Genesis first. Genesis being Sega's second console. The Master System was its first. My cousin had the Master System. I played a lot on that, and I thought, man, this is great. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this, but I felt like the graphics were better than the NES, and I just remember like having really cool experiences on the Master System. So, as you all know, or maybe you know, the Sega Dreamcast, the successor, came out in 1989. So it beat the Super Nintendo by a couple of years. And so I was sitting around. I hadn't owned the NES. Again, my NES was like, when we had the NES, it was all kind of like, it was everybody's NES in my house. My cousins. I lived with my grandma a lot because my mom was moving, or she would travel a lot with my dad for work. So I was staying with my grandma a lot in my earlier years. And so I had basically shared an NES with my cousins. And so it was never mine. I eventually got one later, but I never owned the NES as like, that's mine until 93, maybe. So my first console, well, that's not true. As far as like relevant console, because my mom did buy me a Atari 5200, which is a relic. It's like a giant VCR that had compartments in the back that you stick the controllers in. They did detach the controllers, but for some reason they put like this big compartment in the back. Like it was the 80s. What can I say? And I remember like the RF thing, the thing that plugged into your TV to get the signal, the video signal, and the power adapter were like connected, and it would spark every time. It seemed like it was super dangerous. Like when you hook it up, when you hooked up the RF unit to your TV, like the freaking thing would spark, like because there was power running through that thing. It was not well designed. So that was technically my first console. My mom bought it. It was like super discounted at the time. It was like $50, and I got that, and I got like Pac-Man, Joust, and James Bond 007. and I played the crap out of those games. And Breakout, Super Breakout. I think it was Super Breakout. So that was my first console that was mine. The second console that was mine was the Sega Genesis, and Sega Genesis was awesome. Like it came in um, trying to establish itself against Nintendo because Nintendo was the dominant console at the time. People referred to playing video games as playing Nintendo. Um, and so they came in with a different kind of like attitude. It's like, all right, you kids who grew up on the NES, you're a little older now, maybe in your preteens, you're in your early teens, and you want something with a little edge. And when you're that young, you want to be older. You want to be like, oh, I'm a big tough guy now, or whatever. And that worked on younger kids. It's like, oh, I can't play that Nintendo thing anymore. That's for babies. I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm a preteen. I'm a teen. And so I got that, and I got like Altered Beast, and these games just like blew my mind. Like there was stuff that you couldn't do on the NES, and you got to think of it in a perspective of that time period. So we didn't know what was going to come, and stuff was going to keep blowing other stuff away. We had no idea. We just knew NES mostly. We knew Atari, and so the Sega Genesis came out, and it had all the blast processing, which is actually really real. I mean, it wasn't as effective as it was supposed to be, but it was definitely effective in marketing. And it just visually it blew the NES out of the water, right? So, and we didn't know, I mean, we kind of knew that Nintendo was working on something. Again, this is a different time period. You weren't expecting, the next big powerful thing to come out. We just didn't know. We just waited, and we played games when they came, and we saw it on TV. We were on the internet scouring and finding out, there's a whatever pro coming out, or any of that stuff. That wasn't the world we lived in. So by the time the Genesis came out, it was like, well, this is a whole new world. This is like amazing to us, and I got caught up in it with the Sonics coming out, and they had the little commercial where Sonic was zooming all over the place, and that was a little later when Mario basically had Super Mario on a slow kind of like old beat up van or whatever, and then like Sonic was like blasting through the streets. And Sega was really aggressive, attacking a Nintendo and it's funny because people think of it as a war back and forth. It was pretty one sided. Nintendo was not happy about it, but they kind of like felt like they were taking the high ground. Sorry, I'm very dry right now for some reason. Just had some chicken. Yeah, they felt like they were taking high ground as far as marketing goes. They probably looked down at Sega like, you guys aren't doing that over here. And so I was super happy. But once the Super Nintendo came out, when I first saw like the giant bullet bill with Mario on the Super Mario Brother or Super Mario World, it was a wrap. I went back. It was a wrap at that point. But I was still a Sega fan, a Sega kid. Even though I kind of left my Sega, I didn't leave it behind. I still bought plenty of games for it. But I kind of went back to Nintendo, if you will, at that point. It's like, Nintendo's not messing around here. And obviously, Super Nintendo has one of the greatest gaming libraries of all time. And I feel the same way about Sega Genesis as well. They just kind of serve different avenues. They serve different purposes. So I was in, and so I was excited after that era, the 16-bit era, to see what Sega was going to do. I was in. I was following things. I was like, I'm definitely going to get a Saturn. That's the new Sega console, of course. It's CD based. I started really getting into like FMVs and all that kind of stuff. The Sega CD was very intriguing. But at that time, Sega was also faltering. They had the Sega CD. That kind of failed, kind of flopped. They had the 32X, and that was flopping. They were kind of like not sure of what they were going to do, and they probably never recovered from that. They were just throwing a lot of stuff at the wall. They made a lot of money during the 16-bit era, and so they spent. So let's see what you guys are saying. I'm gonna leave your comments too far back here. 5200 was my first console. Jay Biggs, what's up? Nice. 5200 was great. The only real drawback was the controller breaking so easy. Yeah, the controllers were terrible because they were like it looked like a phone. They were like really long. They had numbers all at the bottom, and they had the terrible stick, and that stick would always break. It was a piece of junk. It was really poorly made. Um, J Biggs, back in the day, I remember my friends saying Japan had systems we didn't have that was ahead of us. I remember watching the Saturday morning cartoon preview on ABC when they started showing the Super Nintendo commercials. Yeah, yeah, same. I was instantly blown away. Fernando, the real winners were the fans. We got the software from both companies constantly trying to one up each other. So yeah, that was another thing. It was like people today talk about, oh man, these console wars. Like it's not as embarrassing as it is today with grown adults. When we were kids, it was like, oh, I want to play. I would say, oh yeah, my system is the best because that's what I had. But I wanted to play what the other guy had too. But I was lucky enough to have Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, so I never really wanted for much as far as that goes. But we all back then we traded games. Your friends, you go to school, it's like, hey, I got this game. You want to borrow this? Let me borrow that. And that's how it kind of worked because you didn't have infinite money to work with. You had to wait for Christmases and birthdays, and that's when you got games. And so that's how it worked. But this idea of this battling crazy console war, that was only really happening with the companies themselves, the fans. None of the kids I grew up with like, oh, Sega sucks or Nintendo sucks. It wasn't like that. It was, I don't know why people make it kind of seem like that, but not in my upbringing, that didn't happen. So, but yeah, the Saturn came out, and I love the Saturn. The Saturn could have been my favorite gaming console of all time. You guys know it's the Nintendo 64. The only reason that I didn't give it to there's a few reasons I didn't give it to Saturn. Just the impactful games. It didn't really have those outside of a couple, the way the N64 had, and also all of its well, not all of it, but a lot of its best games, a lot of the best games in its library were only in Japan because they didn't see the value in Japanese games at that point. Sega of America didn't. So Bernie Stoller, rest in peace. I gave him a lot of crap throughout the years. He just had a bad strategy when it came to the Saturn. Um, and yeah, it didn't really work out. But so I bought all into the Saturn. I spent a lot of money on it. I got my friend, my best friend, to buy one as well, and because I talked about it so much and blah blah blah, and so that's how he wanted to do it. Look, I could tell my. Hold on a second here. The chat is off. I think I know. Okay, so now I know why I put that little. Hold on a second. Technicalities, man. Technicalities. I have a little. Where is it? Where is it? Image. Is that it? I think that's it. Let me bring that up. There we go. I think. No. A little further. Let's bring it up under the chat box. There we go. All right, we'll do that. So I guess I did have something for that issue there. But yeah, so after that Saturn, I just, I was feeling pretty down on Sega because Bernie Stoller came out in 97, 96, either late 96 or early 97 and said, Sega Saturn is not our future. I think it was like at E3, and I'm like, what? I just got this thing 2 years ago, and you're telling me you're already talking about it not being the future. I thought it was going to be like everything every time any other system came out for Sega, Nintendo, and now PlayStation, that they're just going to battle it out throughout they're going to get a whole life cycle, and we didn't understand all these other things, the business sides and all that stuff. We just bought games and played games, so it was confusing to us. As a fan, I was really upset, and I was upset that a lot of the games that I wanted to play, they didn't care to bring over. They weren't trying to bring them over from Japan. They weren't translating these games, um, and I was upset about that. So I was upset. I came out of 90, late 97, 98. I think 98, early 98 was when we got Panzer Dragoon Saga. That was pretty much it for me as far as like paying attention to Saturn at that time. I did go back eventually and pick up other stuff in the early 2000s, but I was done. And mentally, I was done with Sega. I was upset, and I'm like, I don't care about what they're doing, what their future is, and I had no intention of buying a Sega Dreamcast. I think it was still called the Katana at the time, the code name, which was a really cool code name, which made it hard for me not to care. But my mind was turned off until I was working at a grocery store, and I had a friend named Anthony, and that's all he did was talk about the next Sega console. He talked about the specs, and it's going to be great, and all the visuals is going to be so fast, it's going to blow away everything that's out right now, and I couldn't care less. I didn't want to hear it. And then we got closer and closer to the date, and at the meantime, I'm enjoying my N64 a lot. I had gotten a PlayStation, I think, as a kind of a protest in '98. Was it '98 when I got the PS? I think it was. It had to be. Yeah, it had to be '98. Because I was a staunch Nintendo fanboy. I was not gonna buy Nintendo's main competition that generation. Who's this Sony? Who Sony think they are? Go back to making Walkmans and stereos and TVs. Don't come in here trying to make no video game console. So I was a little salty. But I eventually had to, you had to. There's too many games coming out on PlayStation to ignore. So I eventually got one. But I was done with Sega. And over time, he just kept pecking away. My friend Anthony kept pecking away. 99.99, man. He was just kept pecking away at me. And then I started seeing previews and commercials and screenshots in magazines. I'm like, man, that thing looks really good. And then you saw consistent 60 frame per second games, because we hadn't had that yet, really. And when we did have it, it was like, oh, this is glorious. And I didn't really understand or know what frame rate was at that time. I wasn't something I was actively thinking about. I don't think I even started thinking about frame rate until the Dreamcast, or the start of 6th gen, with Dreamcast and GameCube and a PS2. That's when I started to actually really start to pay attention and realize, oh yeah, these things are super stuttery, and that's not. So it was it was getting harder and harder for me to ignore, and I was like, okay. So I started paying attention. I'm a gamer. I mean, it's Sega. Sega's in my heart, and so I finally started to cave. And it was just like really cool marketing strategy for Sega with the 99.99. I mean, you can't forget the date. 99 was such a good year, entertainment wise. It was just fantastic. And then there was the Y2K thing looming. It was very cool. And it was just like a perfect marketing strategy. And they had the best games that I've ever seen, visually I've ever seen. And so I caved. I put money down on it. I didn't even have enough money at the time. I think you could put some down on it and then you could pay the rest at that time. I don't know if they do that anymore. But you put money down on it and you pay the rest when you show up. If you don't, they hand your system off to somebody else. I actually saw that in the line. It was very sad. Because the guy was like, I need another day or something like that. It was crazy. Let's see what you guys are saying here. We wouldn't be dealing with Xbox garbage if Sega did screw up the Dreamcast. It's funny because Microsoft did have a lot to do with the Dreamcast, which was honestly part of the issue with it. I'll get into in a minute. I used to borrow games and never gave them back. So you're that kid that I still have games borrowed out there too. Shining Force consumed my life for an entire Christmas vacation. Yeah, Shining Force is freaking amazing. Sega Saturn kicked ass. I was fortunate to get a Model One, oval buttons. I didn't get a Model One. I don't. I think. Did I? I can't remember. No, I don't think mine's a. My day one Dreamcast is or it's Dreamcast. Saturn is not Model One. I don't think. Um, uh, Heavily discounted games when it wasn't selling well. Yeah, that was also a really good part of it. Die Hard Arcade was my jam. I love Die Hard Arcade. I still have mine. Parasite Eve convinced me to get a PlayStation. Nice. I turned 19 in '99. At that time, started my video game break till about '05. Yeah, so 9999 happened. I went to pick up my Dreamcast. This is my big Wizzy one Dreamcast. I put a little sticker on it, as you can probably see there. It's actually starting to yellow. I just noticed that it's really yellowing on the. You can't. Yeah, the modem there. You see that? Yeah. So what's the cool thing is that I could just swap it out, but that's my day one modem, man. Um, that's kind of sad. But yeah, this I love the design of this thing. It's beautiful. Obviously, it took a cue from the N64, putting four controller ports in. A very smart move because did have a lot of fun playing four player. This just looked like a futuristic CD player. It's just nice and compact. I mean, it is a little hefty, but it has a great design. You don't see Sega. Oh yeah, Sega's in the front here. But when it comes to the Dreamcast, I don't know if Sega they did some marketing and they're like, well, the Sega name is a little bit tarnished. Let's just focus on Dreamcast. Or it was just kind of like what Nintendo did with the Wii. It was never like Nintendo Wii. It was just Wii. You know, they tried to do a whole kind of different other feel to it, and I think it worked a lot. Obviously for the Wii, and I thought it was going to work for the Dreamcast. I love the name. I love the katana probably a little better, but you know, uh, Dreamcast is a great name. And as you can see on the front there, let me see. I don't know if you can see. Oh yeah, let's got a lot of light here. Com- what is it? Does it say compatible or yeah, compatible with Windows CE? So that was the operating system that pretty much doomed the Dreamcast when it came to like burning games. It made it really easy with Windows CE, and you know they lost a lot of money basically because people burned games. I never did. I never got into that world. I love having physical, you know, complete games. So, but yeah, so let's get into it. So that was this. That's the system. Obviously, the innovative modem. Although the Sega Saturn actually had a modem as well. Um, it was rarely used though. I can't remember what actually you could do with it. But yeah, so four controller ports, power, eject button or open button, the lid button there, and the only one gripe as far as the design of the system or its how it performed is it's loud. Like those GD ROMs, I think they're called. That you can hack, you can hear it turning, or you can hear the laser and all that stuff, and it's just like, man, that's fairly loud. But it wasn't that big a deal at the end of the day. I don't know why I can't find my real controllers. I have them somewhere. I stored them, I guess, and don't know where. But sometimes you store things. But like I said, Dreamcast, they took a lot of cues from the N64 and Nintendo. And this is the visual memory unit. This is a memory card, the VMU. And obviously it has a screen on it. And you can see a bunch of stuff. You can not just a screen on it. You can see it has controls and buttons like a little gaming console, and you could kind of use that for certain things, for certain games that would allow you to do things on like Sonic Adventure. What do they call the little creatures that you can raise? You collect them and you can raise them on here outside the game. Come back and then upload your data. Very innovative, very cool. I love stuff like this when it comes to video games. And the Rumble Pack, which is, I think it's called the Trimmer Pack, on the Dreamcast, I think. And it does what the Rumble Pack does on the N64. So I was all in. Now I don't have the original controller, but this is my Retro Fighters controller. The controller for Dreamcast is one of my other big issues with the system. It's not ergonomic. It doesn't feel good to hold. Um, it's too angular. I don't know. But Retro Fighters got it right. This is a great uh, addition. It works the same way your Dreamcast controller works. Obviously, it's just it feels so much better to hold. And instead of where the Dreamcast would have your palms wanting to touch or your wrist wanting to touch, this does it right. It makes your hand go out, and that's how you want to hold the controller. It forces, not forces, but it pushes your hands out. It makes it way more comfortable, and the triggers are better. Um, it's one thing I couldn't stand on the Dreamcast controller as well. But the only big problem with the Dreamcast controller is that it doesn't have dual analog, and because it doesn't have enough face buttons, the way N64 does, the N64 has buttons basically for camera controls. Um, I don't know what they were thinking. First person games are a pain to play on this, because you have to do the mouse and keyboard thing where these are arrow. A lot of games are these are like arrow keys, and you fire with the trigger, which is cool, um, but it forces people to do that. Fine for me, but a lot of people just didn't like that at all. But I think you can get used to it. But yeah, I wish I had the original controller to show. Let me see. I don't have it up. I got so much crap everywhere. I don't know where. It's probably down in them storage bins and in my basement. So, because I don't really use it, I use this now. I don't use the original controller. So yeah, and like I said, the games were phenomenal. I would go to game stores all the time. I think it was EB Games at the time. Was it EB? And then KB Toys had game section. X Software, etc. was probably my favorite spot to go, and I was in the mall. Back when people went to malls and kids hung out there. But yeah, it's great. Super innovative. Like it wanted to continue the innovations of the N64 and do their own thing. And like I love it. But what made the system obviously is the games, and I would try to like put together my launch games because I bought a lot of launch games. I put up my money every time I got paid, my tiny little paycheck back then. And I just was like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of games, and these games were like $50, I think, at the time, which was it was similar feel. It was a lot of money at the time, but I'm trying to remember. I feel like Hydro Thunder was definitely a launch title that I bought, and it's just an arcade classic. This game is it's like it's like a wave race type of game, but much faster, 60 frames, and like speedboats. It was basically speedboats, and I remember I used to play the arcade all the time because it looked glorious to me. Toy Commander was another one I bought at launch. I Even to this day, I'm still a huge fan of Honey I Shrunk the Kids, and just playing as like little toys like I still love that. Clive and Wrench has a level where you're like shrunken down and you're like running through a house, and I just love that. I love that kind of stuff. Toy Commander is very cool. But this was the main launch title. I mean, everybody got this. You got a Dreamcast. You had to get Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur melted our brains. 60 frames. The models, the characters, and everything just looked better than we've ever seen in any video game ever. The jiggle physics on the characters like Ivy and whatnot. This game was the game, and you go into a freaking game store, and you like see it up on the TV, and the voice actor Soul Calibur. It just got you like fired up. This is great. Namco, they knocked it out of the box with their fighting games. Um, and that was a huge one. And I know there's a couple more that I got because I feel like I bought 5, so that's 3 there. Oh yeah, duh. This one, Sonic Adventure. I mean, it gets made fun of for its jank and whatnot. Now we didn't care. At that time, we did not care. This game looked amazing. Sonic was the first time Sonic in 3D. A 3-dimensional. Well, we saw a little bit of it in like Sonic Jam, where you got to like move around in the hub world in 3D. And I guess you could say Sonic R, Sonic Racing, on Sega Saturn. But this was like, this is his world. This is his game to actually play in with new big levels and super fast, zooming all over the place. The game, he would move so fast that he would leave the camera. And we didn't realize that was jank. We just thought, that was part of the game. We didn't understand it as jank at the time. And I love this game, man. To this day. This is probably, maybe Sonic 2 is, which I have here, is a little bit, I like it a little bit more. It's tighter, and all that. But it's hard to replace the original Sonic Adventure, man. It blew my mind. And I know there's one more game, and I can't remember. I feel like it was a racing game. Was it Sega Rally? I think Sega. That's the thing about the Dreamcast. Also, is that the launch titles, still to this day, had the best launch lineup of any game console. Here it is. It's right here in front of my face. I think this was a launch title. I'm not sure. Either it was a launch title or I got it super early on in the life cycle. Because I remember playing the heck out of this game because I love rally games. And this looked great. The Sega racing games were always just amazing anyway. Or was it Blue Stinger? I don't know if I got Blue Stinger at launch, but this was definitely a launch title. And talk about jank. This is jank. This is like, Activision's attempt at like a sci-fi version of Resident Evil. Voice acting was jank. Camera angles. But I still enjoy it. And I remember this game. I don't know if this is a launch title. I feel like it was. But I got this later on because the graphics in this freaking game just blew our minds at the time, man. Like the character models, we didn't have like characters that talked like and moved their mouths, and that was a rare thing. And to have them with so much personality, this was like Punch Out, with a little bit more edge to it. The Super Punch Out games from Nintendo. Where all the characters are like quirky, almost typical characters, but just a lot of personality and a lot of voice acting. Again, there wasn't a ton of games that had like so much voice work in the actual game. I'm talking about cutscenes and anything like that. I'm talking about in the actual gameplay when you're playing and you guys just talking crap, and the special effects. The visual effects in this game look really good. It really a lot of flair, like a lot of pizzazz to the effects in the game. It just made it look really good. Looked like next generation stuff. We didn't think about next generation. That's a term we use all the time now, but it just like blew our minds when we first saw these games. And you got iterations of your favorite classics, your fighting games like your Virtua Fighter 3 TB, which was a little bit of a letdown, but again, it wasn't graphically what I thought it was going to be. When you had like Soul Calibur just blown it out of water visually, I wanted Virtua Fighter to look that good. So there's tons of games, and we'll just look at more of those. I don't have, maybe I do have it somewhere in this pile. But one of the big games, I mean, Sega was really good at like arcade. That was their signature thing. Let's see if I can. Oh yeah, here it is. And I just had to have this. So Sega Bass Fishing. I used to play in the arcade all the time. Sega was like really good at their arcade stuff, And so just to have a controller where I'm literally like fishing, and this is genius. That they actually brought this experience home. An early pickup for me, for sure. Amazing. Um, Back in the day where you still had, what do you call them? What are they called? Not just gun games, but like, what are they called? There's a term for these types of games. Light gun games, duh. Um, and they still work because you're using CRT TVs, cathode ray tubes, so it could actually read the flashes coming out of this thing. This was amazing. And again, the gun itself could take your VMU. I know I'm doing that right? It's got to be, yeah. So you can slide your VMU down in there, and bring over your save files or whatever you had to do. And I don't know if this was compatible or not. I can't remember. I feel like it was. It had to be compatible with the rumble. So when you shoot, you really felt, the rumbling from the trimmer pack there. So it's phenomenal stuff, man. Like this again. Probably not too big on younger people, but for us at the time, having like a full-on arcade feeling at home was just, that's kind of what Sega wanted to do. They wanted to bring the arcades to the home, so they were really good at doing that. All right, let's see if I missed anything here. I'm getting to that, Nick Fonte. I'm getting to that in a second. Skies of Arcadia alone worth buying the Dreamcast for. Yep, alone. Even though I had a Dreamcast in my house, I didn't play it much. I mostly played Crazy Taxi, Ready to Rumble, and Street Fighter 3. Power Stone 2 sucks, says Sean White. J Big's getting a lot of in live vid. Oh, really? You getting ads? I rushed this and I didn't have time to. I should have set that up better. Sorry about that. Juice, what's up? Bucks look good and Giants. Yeah. Oh wait, Terminator Juice now. Dreamcast made the arcades irrelevant. Yeah, they kind of did. I mean, I still would go, but Dreamcast, the Street Fighter games and all that. Like the Saturn was starting to do that, but it was still like the mid '90s, and so we were still going to the arcades. But we started going less and less because of the Dreamcast. And a certain game I'm going to show in a second here. Obviously, I've showed Soul Calibur 2, Soul Calibur, and other games. Now we're going to get into what I think Fernando just brought up, or maybe it was Jay Biggs. So what made the Dreamcast a Dreamcast? Obviously, Sega Online. What do they call it? Was it just Sega Online or SegaNet? I think it was SegaNet. And playing online multiplayer for the first time was just, it was amazing at that time. And so you had standout games like Phantasy Star Online. This was a huge game online. Huge, big, RPG where you can join with your friends into, if you got to know what Phantasy Star is, right? But my game, do I have it here? The original? I know I have the original, but I don't see it in this pile here. I'll just use this to represent it. NFL 2K. What is this? 2K1 right here. But Sega always brought it when it came to sports games, and the Dreamcast is no exception. Their 2K series with NFL 2K, and then with NBA 2K, you got AI on the cover there, Allen Iverson, and then World Series Baseball 2K, like all great, just like 9 out of 10 or higher sports titles, all phenomenal, and just days and days and hours of playing online with people, until people started like doing exploits. I remember. Trying to remember. I think his name was Alan Rawson for the the Atlanta Falcons, and he was like an amazing kick returner. Um, and I think somebody changed him to their quarterback. So I think it was Chandler back then. Mike Vick wasn't there yet, and they changed him to the quarterback, the kick return guy, and they just it just would take off, and I couldn't touch him. And you run into people like that online every once in a while who know all the little tricks, and just you take it or you quit. Usually, I would quit when people did that kind of stuff. I want to play a real game of football, not quite simulation, but I wanted to play a fun real game of football. I didn't like people like, what's the point of doing that? Just, oh, I'm gonna win by. That's not even fun. It's not football. So it was kind of lame to me. And we move this over here out the way. Trick Style was also a really cool kind of hoverboard game in the style of like a Tony Hawk or something, but more kind of arcade racing. That was cool. And obviously, somebody said earlier, these are the games or the stuff that defined the Sega Dreamcast. Games like Crazy Taxi, Soul Calibur, because Soul Calibur wasn't on any other console. That was a Dreamcast exclusive. Stuff like this game, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It had both of them. Obviously, Marvel vs. Capcom 1 was on here, but this was the game that blew this fighting series, like crazy. It was like this. This is what as far as multiplayer goes, co-op or not co-op, but like couch gaming, multiplayer at home with a bunch of guys. This was the game we played relentlessly, and it was just again beautiful 2D graphics, super fast, beautiful visual effects, special effects in the game, just really flashy and cool. Proton cannon from Iron Man. And you knew it was over at that point. Even if you blocked, you better have enough life because that proton cannon hits you and the screen lights up and you're done. I had a friend of mine that was like unbeatable with like Spider-Man. His combos with Spider-Man were just ridiculous. I didn't even want to play him. He was so good. But yeah, these are the game defining or the console defining games. Virtual Tennis was another great one. I loved, especially in these days, I really like tennis games and golf. I guess I have to credit Mario Golf with that, the Mario sports titles. This one, Dead or Alive 2. Fantastic game. I mean, this was right up there with Soul Calibur to me, as far as visually and just visually impressive and just fun as heck. Like this game. And the jiggle physics, of course. The jiggle physics were nice in this game. Freaking phenomenal. We have Carrier, which, again, a lot of Resident Evil style games try to come out in these days. Carrier was one of them. What else here? Oh, here's Ready to Rumble Round 2. Just even better. I think this was even better than the original one because they really fleshed it out. You can see all the characters there on the back. I'm trying to keep all that light out. I have to have my light, but there you go. You can see there's just the roster of characters, and this is insane. Very cool. Hope this thing doesn't teeter over. Echo the Dolphin, which was a great game or great couple of games on Sega Genesis. I don't think there was one on Saturn, no. And it came back, and that was a big thing for me, or fans of the series, to have like a 3D. Well, it wasn't 3D. It was still no, it was 3D. What am I saying? It wasn't 3D. I'm just saying it was like a big open world or anything, but it was 3D. Buzz Lightyear. Well, I don't know where the this was actually a really good 3D platformer, Buzz Lightyear. I don't know where the freaking manual is right now. The Tomb Raider series continued on from the PlayStation. These are the same games PlayStation got, but they just looked a lot better because the graphics on the Dreamcast blew everybody away. They were phenomenal. PlayStation couldn't touch it, and N64 couldn't touch the graphics. Let's see here. Oh, this was huge. This is probably... Quake 3 Arena online. It was just like, this is the game right here. I mean, how many players at a time? Um, doesn't I thought it would say on the back, but it doesn't say. Over 30 high ranking war. Is it 30? It was a lot. Online at once in death matches, hours and hours at night when I came home from work, just playing the crap out of this. Quake 3, freaking phenomenal on Dreamcast. Um, then you got, and the variety on Dreamcast is really good, except for one genre, which I'll kind of touch into. Star Lancer was a really cool, like, I don't want to say sim, but like space. I'm into futuristic sci-fi space stuff, so this is a really cool space game there. And you have driving games were all over the place. I have it's Test Drive and TNT motocross or motorsport, not motocross. I like this game a lot. This is a hidden gem as far as I'm concerned. Red Dog. I think you're on Mars, if I remember correctly, and you're just like, if you remember that game Master Blaster, I think it's called Master Blaster, where you're like in this tank and you're a little guy, you can get out at certain points. Not at certain points, you can get out when you want, but you can get out at this kind of little tank you would drive around in. You mostly drive around in the tank and you're blasting stuff, Master Blaster. This felt like the 3D version of that, and it is a lot of fun. So if you find Red Dog anywhere, I highly recommend it. It's very good. All right, another system-defining game for sure. Jet Grind Radio. And I always forget if it's Jet Set or Jet Grind. I think the Japanese version was Jet Set. And I remember reading about it a lot before this came out. But that's why I always get them mixed up. But Jet Grind Radio, phenomenal. This game is so much stylish. It has so much style to it. It's so stylish with the music. And if you don't know what this game is, you're like a, how do you put it? You're like a skate punk, I guess. And it's like really, cell shaded graphics, really stylish. And you're grinding on rails and you spraying graffiti. And you have different tasks that you have to do per level and stuff like that. And so you just carry out different tasks, and the police are chasing you and other rival gangs and whatnot. Phenomenal game. So much style. This game, and I don't have it here either, Space Channel 5. I mean, Space Channel 5, Jet Grind Radio, Seaman. These are like system-defining games. That some of them maybe not sell too great. Like Seaman, I don't think sold great, but it's a game you remember the Dreamcast for. And you had Smash Pack Volume 1, which is hilarious because there's no Volume 2. They never got to it, but this has a lot of Sega Genesis classics on it. Sonic the Hedgehog, Golden Axe, Shining Force, Streets of Rage 2, Wrestle War, Columns, Virtual Cop 2. And this was a new thing, like having a multi-pack game where there's a bunch of different games on one. This was fairly new, and this was like, oh man, this is amazing. I don't even need to pull out my Sega Genesis for this. I can just play them on my Dreamcast, and to have all these classics: Vector Man, Phantasy Star 2, Altered Beast on here, Revenge of Shinobi, which is not my favorite. I don't know why they picked that one, but Virtual Cop 2 and Sega Swirl, Columns, just great stuff. Did I move my phone? Where did it go? Did I set it down somewhere? I need to use it so I can see what you guys are saying. I haven't moved, so it can't be... Hold on a second. I'm going to use my watch to find it. Oh, there it is. All right. All right, there we go. Let's see. Soul Calibur, NFL 2K1, San Francisco Rush, 2049. Most games I played on DC, so it's Juice. So you have Indie... hold on, buddy. Hold on. Just because you called it out. I was going to get to it at some point. But... do I have MDK? Of course I have MDK too. I I think MDK stands for Murder Death Kill, which is like 187. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it stands for, MDK. Um, that's the police code for 187. Police code for Murder Death Kill is 187, and that's what MDK is. I think that's what it stands for the game too. I don't think they would say that in the game anyway, but really clever. Just like quirky, awesome game with really cool like objectives and whatnot. This game is hard to explain, but look it up if you haven't seen it or haven't played it. They need to bring this type of stuff back to gaming. This is so cool. This is one of my faves. Omicron, the Nomad Soul. I just like saying the name Omicron. This is, I feel like, oh yes, this is Quantic Dream. So if you know like Indigo Prophecy or Detroit Become Human, they also did Heavy Rain, right? That's Quantic Dream as well. Yeah, this is like, I think this is their first game. This is like one of their early games, and this is like the first early attempts for a console game to have like a big open world. In many ways, this reminds me of something like there's similarities, but it's not really like oh my god, I can't even think of the name of the game, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, it really cool. This is like what you would see on PC. You didn't see games of this size, the world size, on console until the Dreamcast, really, and phenomenal. Let's see, and then you had stalwarts like Mortal Kombat Gold, and there's Sega Bass Fishing. There it is. Yeah, Sega Bass Fishing. This is not, yeah. This must not be my original because I bought it day one. Oh, there it is. The original NFL 2K. The classic. This one wasn't online, was it? No. Because this came out, this was the launch title. We didn't get it online until 2K1. So that's the first one we got online. And it was freaking amazing. Oh, yeah, Wetrix. I actually have this on N64 as well. It's a cool puzzle game. I like my puzzle games. And I have some custom cases here because I would lose my cases because I kept them in like I still have it. I kept them in a binder that you just throw your CDs in. And so when I did that, I started losing stuff. And some of these I just bought later on down the line. But this is an original. Well, let me show you the game first because I made my own custom case. I made my own covers. So I printed these out myself. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. NBA Showtime, which is very similar to NBA Jam. There's the game in there. I see I have the manual for this one, but I don't know where the freaking case is. Here's a great one. Spider-Man. I actually got this on, I feel like I bought this on PlayStation first, but I wanted the better graphics, so I went back and got this. I think this is getting a little pricey these days. Here's another PC-style game that I got to play on my console. Coaster Works. You can just build coasters and then ride them. That's nerdy stuff. It's kind of fun for me. And you got Sega GT. And again, it's in a custom... That's the manual, but I don't have... I would lose stuff in these days. Let's see. Fighting Force 2, which I really liked Fighting Force 1 a lot, and they completely changed it in this game. I don't know why. They really shouldn't call this Fighting Force 2. It's a completely different game. It's a third-person action-adventure game. When the first one was a brawler. Four-player... It was a four-player, two-player brawler. Sternwind I actually recently bought because people are still making games for Dreamcast because it's so easy to program for. So even to this day, people are making Sega Dreamcast games. They're porting new games, newer like what do you call it, indie games. They're porting them over to the Dreamcast as well. Air Force Delta, which I love, jet fighting games. Going back to the great Sega game Afterburner. It's another space shooter, Armada. That's really cool. All right, so the genre that kind of didn't get represented that much on Dreamcast, which is the same genre on Nintendo 64, RPGs. Not a ton of RPGs. Dreamcast wasn't really known for that. And I think that's one of the things that hurt it. Not RPGs specifically, but the Dreamcast was a very arcade heavy console. Like as far as as far as the style of games, arcade heavy, and those games don't hold gamers for that long. I remember bringing my 5 games home, and playing them, and kind of being, other than like Sonic Adventure, not the right word to use, but over them pretty quickly. I went back to them and played them more and more, obviously, but there was not a meaty experience to hold you that you want. You want a big Mario, 3D Mario game, or you want some big title, a big RPG from Square, something to hold you over. And a lot of the problem with the Dreamcast is a lot of those companies kind of shunned it because of what happened with the Sega Saturn. A lot of the game companies got burned when they cut the life cycle of the Sega Saturn so short. Sega Saturn actually did really well in Japan. It actually sold better in Japan than the N64 did. It was very successful in Japan. Just the North American release or Western world, rest of the world, didn't do as well. And the Dreamcast suffered because EA. I thought EA just didn't want to be on Dreamcast because of what happened with the Saturn, and they felt like they got burned. But they didn't like. I just read this a few months ago. They didn't like the fact that Sega was making these freaking sports games that looked better and played better than theirs. There's the 2K series that EA said they weren't going to support, not just sports games, but they wouldn't support them anyway, the Dreamcast. And then it really hurt Dreamcast as far as the variety goes. And so you would have got maybe some bigger adventure games from EA, because EA was a big publisher and they brought over a lot of stuff that they didn't internally develop themselves to other consoles. That almost fell completely over. Here's another. This is actually a repro of a game. What is it called? Dolphin Blue. Is this one sealed? I have one that's sealed. As you can see, a pretty good repro. It looks very good. And this is like a side-scrolling kind of shooter. Like a shmup. And there's Arrow Wings, another jet fighter game. WWF Royal Rumble. Not as good as the Aki games on N64. But okay, not too bad. And then you have a game I like a lot, Slave Zero. I got another hidden gem. Definitely get this. I don't think it's that expensive or anything. But Slave Zero is dope. It's like you're like a mech in like a cityscape, and it's like a shooter game, a lot of action, really cool. And you got Rippin' Riders, which is, I feel like that's a launch title, or at least early. I might be wrong about that, but it's a snowboarding game. If you haven't figured that out. Let's show this one before moving on. As you can see, Resident Evil Code Veronica, or Biohazard. This is not the Japanese version. It is the Japanese case, but as you can see there, I have the American version, or Western version of the game, North American version. I lost the case, and I saw this for really cheap, and I was like, oh, I want a case for it. And so I bought that, put it in. But RPGs, let me get back to this real quick. This was a pretty good RPG series. It actually went on to the PlayStation 2, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it's on. I think it's also on GameCube. I think that's the version I have. So Evolution 1 and Evolution 2 by Ubisoft. They are the publishers. Who's the developer? It doesn't say. ESP Sting. I don't know who that is. But yeah, this was actually a pretty good RPG series. Um, but not really thought of as one, but this is also an RPG. But it's a genre kind of melting pot because there's different things you can do. There's fighting elements. There's action adventure stuff. There's an open world. Shenmue is like a console defining game. Phenomenal, and also sore thumb when it comes to the Saturn or Dreamcast. Because actually, I said Saturn, but this game actually started development on the Saturn. There is a build of it. You can look it up. I actually did a video on it. This game is just an epic, huge, epic adventure, and they put a lot of time and a lot of money into this, and it did okay. Which is, one of the things that really hurt the Dreamcast towards the end is how the game sold. And like I said, there were people pirating games and playing burn games, but then it was also big games like this that came out that didn't do as well as the budget would have hoped. So, but two of my favorite games of all time, Shenmue 1 and 2. I have 3. I haven't played it. I don't think it's going to be that good. You know about Shenmue 3 and its development cycle and how it was presented. So yeah. Let me see what you got. I can't. I need my peepers. My eyes. Oh. Hold on. Let me read here. Dreamcast. Oh, so yeah, I answered that. NBK. Dreamcast had a game called Seaman with Leonard Nimoy. Yes. Also, Marvel v. Capcom 2, Metropolis Street Racer. Yes, I have that somewhere. I didn't pull out all my games. That was awesome. Blaster Master is art, says Retro Death. Pretty sure in Europe it's Jet Set. Oh, it's also in Europe Jet Set Radio? Okay. One of my favorite puzzle games, Wetrix. Nice. Oh, good money now with the donation. Thank you, my friend. Jet Grind Radio, Shenmue, Sonic Adventure, along with countless others, was played religiously. Dreamcast had a lot of great original titles that it didn't get credit for at the time. Yes, thank you for the tip as well, but also thank you for that comment because I would have forgotten. That was the best thing about the Dreamcast for me. Again, yes, it didn't sell well. I think it sold 9 or 10 million units, very low. But what makes this system great for me is the games and the fact that the Dreamcast took a lot of chances. They could have came out and just been a continuation of the Saturn. Maybe not, because Saturn wasn't a success either. But there was a lot of new original stuff on the Dreamcast. Just original stuff. And unfortunately, the system was not rewarded for that effort, and that's the saddest thing. People get mad even to this day about, oh man, they don't make this, they don't make that anymore. Well, it's a risk a lot of times because you can make this great game that nobody buys. But Sega Dreamcast had so many great games that weren't being bought. A lot of people were burning them. People just didn't care. It's like, and it hurt me as a diehard Sega fan to see they got it right. They got it right with the Dreamcast. And had it sold 10 million more units, it might be a different gaming world today. But had it sold 10 million more units and it not been pirated so badly as it was, we might be living in a different world today. And it's just, it's unfortunate, it's sad that a console this great and it is great. Just was not rewarded by the industry. Um, it was hard to see Sega go out like that, because their hardware was always great from the beginning, um, and they just didn't get rewarded for it when they finally, because like I said, they screwed up with the Sega CD and the 32X. They screwed up with those. They lost a little bit of trust in the community, in the industry, and then the Saturn also was, it was a bad thing for them, for the most part. There was a lot of greatness, obviously. Like I said, Saturn is one of my favorite. It's my second favorite console of all time. Um, but they got it right with the Dreamcast. They got the price right. It was $200 at launch. The games were well priced, and it was just like great, like original titles. Just like Good Money said, great original titles, including something like Shenmue. Um, and it started off selling really well. It had a great launch. It did do well. We took it for granted. We thought it was gonna be around. It was gonna be the console. It was gonna be There was not gonna be a Xbox. It was gonna be Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo Dolphin at the time, and PlayStation 2 were gonna duke it out. That was gonna be gaming going forward. And I think we would have been a lot better for it. Uh, you know, Microsoft did do some good things. It did push the industry forward with online gaming and achievement systems and all that kind of stuff that people like. Um, but in my heart of hearts, I would have rather have been Sega, and I think most gamers would have as well. To see those guys just like push each other and duke it out. Um, and it would have been, I think, a lot better for the gaming industry. Again, I'm not here to like poo poo on Microsoft, because I think the Xbox, the OG Xbox, it was actually a really good console that also had a ton of original cool titles. Um, and but I didn't. I would have rather have had a Sega, if I had a magic wand that could fix that situation. But my phone is going off here. Let's see. Did it update? Okay. I love Evolution, but man, was it repetitive. Yeah, it was. Level design was pretty repetitive. Did I say that? I guess I didn't say that, but yeah. Um, Time Stalkers, Grandia 2, Skies of Arcadia, solid RPGs. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't mention them, but yeah. Those were all good, again, but they didn't hit. They were all very good, or good to great even. I think Grandia 2 was great. But wasn't Grandia... It was on PlayStation, and PlayStation had the more system soul, and so it wasn't associated with Dreamcast. Skies of Arcadia was, obviously, but it didn't sell. It didn't sell like you would hope. And some of that was a fault of Sega, because their audience was more cultivated on the arcadey stuff, so they didn't pay as much attention to RPGs. But I mean, the system just needed to sell better so it could reach better audiences with the games. Um, Skies of Arcadia is one of the top 10 greatest games ever made, says Retro. I always here to poo poo on Microsoft. But yeah, the Dreamcast wasn't really known for RPGs. Skies of Arcadia eventually came to the GameCube. Um, and so, I don't know. It's unfortunate. But I almost forgot this peripheral. This is very cool. This is the Sega Dreamcast keyboard. Yes, you could use it to type things online, but I don't know if that was what it was designed for, or mainly, because the coolest thing, and I don't have the game over here, but typing of the dead. So, so What's that? What it called? Yeah. So you have the light gun shooter games. Um, God, what were they called? I just watched Dawn of the Dead, and I'm going to watch Land of the Dead, and I can't remember the House of the Dead. So you had House of the Dead for Sega, um, Sega Saturn, home console wise, and it also was at the arcades. That's where it was big at. And so, again, this is stuff that would never even be thought of today. So you have you take that franchise, the light gun shooter game franchise, and you turn it into basically an application to teach people how to type. And so instead of like using your gun to shoot zombies running at you, there would be letters, words basically on their bodies as they're running up, and you would type that in to. That's how you would shoot them. And so the repetition of that would teach you how to type. And crazy. Again, this is stuff that you just did not see in games, video games. And Sega was so innovative, man. They were so innovative. That was one of the other things I loved about them as well. Is that that's what I love about Nintendo. And Sega also had that innovative streak. Also, some would say maybe too innovative at times. They would confuse their audience, and they did that with the Sega Saturn, especially, and maybe the 32X. I think people understood this the Sega CD. Sega CD sold okay, but it wasn't a complete disaster or something. But when you got to the 32X, it just didn't make a lot of sense because the Saturn was coming out. Saturn had actually launched in Japan, and it's like, why you got? And I think they forced them to put out the 32X because I think that's what it was. They forced Sega to put out the 32X because the Saturn wasn't going to be ready for launch in North America, and they wanted to have something. So it was supposed to be like a stopgap. It was very strange, and they didn't really want to put it out. Sega of America didn't. I think their hand felt, it was forced by that. And there was that tension between Sega of America and Sega of Japan that I think hurt the Saturn because they were like, we don't need your games as Sega Japan. You guys trying to control us. We're going to do our own thing. We're going to make a success the same way we did with the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis in North America did a lot better than it did in Japan. Super Nintendo won in Japan. But Sega Genesis actually sold better in North America than the Super Nintendo. So there was this kind of rivalry that seemed like a good idea. We had the Sega of America and Sega of Japan. Kind of the rivalry would create creativity. It would force creativity and like innovative things, and it would come up with that competition. Made them, they thought, better as a company, but by the time it got to the Saturn, I think that actually hurt them. There was too much rivalry between Sega of America and Sega Japan. But yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to talk about when it came to the 25 years since the Dreamcast launched. A phenomenal launch, a very sad end. But what a great console. A phenomenal console that was gone too soon and gave us a lot. It gave us a lot. I think for a lot of people, it will always have like a special spot. And with my little story of going away from Sega and then being pulled back in, thanks to Anthony. Shout out to Anthony, wherever you are, my boy. Hope you're doing well. He talked me back into being a Sega guy, and then my friend Rico, he was the Resident Evil guy, so he was the reason I even thought about Resident Evil Code Veronica. He loved that game. Every time I came over his house, he was playing Code Veronica. That was his game, and so he kind of got me into it. Same with the game on N64 called Winback. He loved Winback, which was the first console game or any game that used cover shooting. N64 game called Winback was the first cover shooting game. But yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time. That era, that late 90s, early 2000s time. For me, that was one of the last great eras in gaming. And it just never got as good as that again. unfortunately. Maybe early Dreamcast or early Xbox 360, early to mid 360 was another good period. And Wii and PlayStation 3 was doing some cool stuff with like Uncharted series, but like just like full era, that was probably the last, like, let's say 1998 to 2003, 2004, something like that, was just like, what a stretch, because you had sparring. There was so much sparring and creativity and all that stuff come out of the era, because there's competition going on, and then obviously Microsoft popped in there and did their thing, and it's just a really cool era. We'll probably never see anything like that again, sadly, in gaming. So, but yeah, that is the Dreamcast. Turns 25 tomorrow. Happy birthday to one of the greatest consoles of all time. This guy says Wii U. Wii U. I can read that from here. Retrobeth. Haha. Alright, so like my video said, I think a lot of us are. I mean, there's still some cool games coming out. Actually, let me see if I can find it. I wish listed some stuff that I forgot was even coming. Let me take this off. Pause. I forgot. Bakaru, is that out? Bakaru is out now, if I'm not mistaken. What else? Obviously, Zelda Echoes. What's it called? What is it? Echoes of Wisdom? That's great. Let me see if I can find them. Because I wish listed them. Some interesting games. In this era of being on Switch 2 watch. Let me see. Maybe it's in my recently viewed here. Come on. A little further. Come on. They got to be in here. Oh, yeah. So you have Legend of Heroes, Trails Through Daybreak, which reviewed really, really well. It's a long-standing RPG series, the Trails, or the Legend of Heroes. And oh yeah, this is the game that I'm really looking forward to getting. Tachia OLED edition, I think it's called, and it's just like this. I'll just show you the photo of the game OLED, or Tachia OLED edition. So this is like a third-person action-adventure game. Let me see if they got some good screens here. Is there a description of this? This is also... It's on other consoles as well. So, join Tachia on her tropical open-world adventure as she sets off to rescue her father from the cruel tyrant Mavora, the ruler of the archipelago. Glide, climb, swim, sail your boat around beautiful islands as you explore a physics-driven sandbox. Face the fabric soldiers created by Mavora in open-world encounters where your creativity gives you the edge. Take control of any animal or object you can find. Make new friends and jam on your fully playable ukulele. A poetic coming-of-age story inspired by New Caledonia. The Tachia OLED edition comes with the base game and Kepler customization pack, and includes 4 costumes, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, this game looked really interesting. I like the visuals of it. So again, this is one of those games I'm going to buy doubly. I'm going to get the physical version for Switch, but I'm going to play it on Steam. And so yeah, that's... Why did I close that? I didn't mean to close that. Let's see if there's anything else. I feel like there's one more game, but I don't see it in here. Maybe it was a... Oh yeah, I said Bakaru already, but I feel like there's one more. Is there a Super Monkey Ball coming? A Super Monkey Ball game coming. I remember seeing that. And so that got me intrigued. So yeah, there's a lot of cool games still to look forward to on the current Switch. There's still stuff to play. I mean, I don't have a problem finding something to play. There's a ton of stuff I currently have. The backlog is crazy, but I learned to stop worrying about it. It's not about finishing everything. Yeah, like it's the experience of playing a lot of times new games is also good. And there's certain games that I definitely want to finish. There's the major releases, but a lot of the smaller games, um, lesser known games, I don't drive myself crazy about as far as wanting or needing to finish them. Um, it's just the fun of being a gamer and playing games is enough. So yeah, but there's still obviously Metro Prime 4, um, which is next year, and I can't think of. There's a couple of games I'm not remembering right now. Um, there's the Mario and Luigi game, right? Brothership. Uh, so there's some stuff still. Um, let me see. I'm trying to find the video here so I can see chat. Oh, there we go. It's just Retro Death talking smack. Yes. Don't forget Mika and the Witch's Mountain. Yes. That was another one. I did see that. Did you see that Sony leaked the PS5 Pro themselves in the anniversary post? I did not see that, J Biggs. Did they show what it looked like or just specs or what? I mean, I really don't care. Do I need to get on my PlayStation rant right now? PlayStation pretty much does almost nothing that I care about. I mean, Astrobot looks cool, um, but I'm gonna wait because I have a feeling that's coming to Steam, like all their other stuff. Uh, if Ratchet and Clank is on Steam, that game will be too. And I mean, eventually I'm gonna get a PS5. I mean, I'm a gamer, so, but I'm just not. It's only going to be for 10 games or something like that, something very low. This is going to one of the systems I'm going to buy that I'm going to have a really tiny library for, and I don't have a lot of systems like that. Um, I don't have many consoles that I have a small library for. Let's see. Did you? Yeah. Just the image. It looks the same with aerodynamic racing stripes. Oh yeah, I did see somebody. I mean, somebody made a meme post about it where they showed the original PlayStation 5 and the one lot of like black, the newer one that has a little black line in the middle of it, the little for the casing separating. And then there was a picture of that next to a guy with one toothpick in his mouth, right? And then like the PlayStation 5 Pro, I didn't know it was real. Had like three lines, and then like the guy had three toothpicks in his mouth or something like that. I was like, that's kind of funny. They show the actual system. Okay, did that sound like what it looks like with the three lines instead of the one? Because then that means I saw it. Uh, that's funny. Uh, Switch 2 will get my cash. It says Retro Death. Yeah, for sure. It's going to get all our cash. Um, I hope it's a substantial leap over the Switch. Uh, PS4 Pro visually, graphics. Um, it has to be better than Steam Deck, right? At this point. But who knows? Nintendo may not put it that far. It's going to limit, obviously, some games as far as their, you know, graphics and frame rate. But again, we live in this era where almost everything can be scaled as long as the engines are compatible. So the Switch 2 just needs to have compatible enough architecture so it can run a lot of these engines, and so then it can get the lesser versions. I'm worried about storage media, like as far as space on a cart and what cart prices are going to be. That is a worry of mine. Um, I think they'll care less this generation. Like all Nintendo games, will fit on a cart. But as far as third party goes, I think the consumer will care less, and so will the companies. As far as you're gonna have to download most of the game. This is just a key to open the game. Basically, you can download it, and I think that's gonna happen more on the Switch too. And I think as long as the the memory, online storage of the console is not ridiculously low, 128 or 200 gigs or something like that. Um, Most people won't care as long as you can fit 6 or 7 games on it at once. I think most people will be fine. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. Rolling out a new console is always a delicate situation. The only company that really hasn't had issues ever is PlayStation. Their fan base just rolls into the next one usually. Although I would say the fervor around PS5 is somewhat weaker than previous consoles. But I just think that's just consoles in general. I think the console market is depressing a bit. Um, and people just aren't buying consoles as much. So let's see. I'm trying to stare over there when I have this thing right here in front of my face. Uh, J Biggs, that is exactly what it is. Oh, so that photo I saw, that meme picture was actually the real. It doesn't really matter as much as how it looks. I mean, you would hope they would have done something to it because the PS4 and the PS4 Pro look pretty different. Um, they can download my ass. What are you talking about, Retro? J Biggs, I'm hoping 256 gigabytes. I have a 1 terabyte SD waiting for it. Also, you're ready to go. Um, I have a 500 gig somewhere that I don't use. So, uh, Xbox, and they're getting pretty cheap SD cards. Um, so that's good. Xbox buy controllers, ponies buy consoles, Nintendrones buy art. I mean games. All right, we're getting silly. But yeah, Switch 2 watch. When do you guys think is going to come out? Because they announced did they say they were going to talk about it after the fiscal year, or they said it won't release in this fiscal year? So it could literally release the day after their fiscal period ends. When do you think we'll actually hear an announcement for it? Did they not? Did they shut down it being announced this year? I can't remember. I'm out of the loop currently. But I'm hoping by April. May 2017 worked out really well. Q2 2024 is my bet. Um, yeah, May worked out really well. I think a lot of it had to do with um, income tax returns. I think people got their tax returns and they bought Switches when they were available. So it doesn't have to be holiday season for you to. Sometimes holiday season is so crowded, you might it might be a bad thing that you release in the holiday season. I get the idea of wanting to do that, but I think there's just too much stuff that comes out for people to buy per year now that you maybe want to make some distance between that stuff and have your own little bubble. And that's what Nintendo had in 2017. They had their own little bubble where they put out the January event and there was nothing. There was nothing in their way. And then the system came out a couple months later in March. Um, So separating yourself from that, crazy time period where people are buying a bunch of stuff and their money is limited, which may not be a bad thing. A lot of new games are coming out as well during that time period. So I think it makes sense to separate yourself from that madness. Um, but who knows? Who knows what they'll do? We'll see. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to talk about. Other than that, I wanted to kind of reiterate my Switch watch. I have tons to play. I'm not sitting around. Oh my god, pining for it. Um, I don't think I did that for Switch. I might have. There was less to play coming out of the Wii U era. So I think we're all clamoring for Switch at that time. Uh, or the what was it called? The NS. That was the code name. No, not NS. NX. NX, which we thought was a pretty cool code name. Some people still wanted it to be named that. Maybe the Switch 2 we call NX. The Nintendo NX. That would be cool. Because people are like, oh, Switch. But maybe that might confuse the market. Like the Wii U did. Oh, no. You can't call it a Wii something because we think it's just an add on. um, Maybe changing the name completely would be fine. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, because like Nintendo DS was backwards compatible with the Game Boy Advance, and so calling it something different didn't make people worry that I can't play my Game Boy Advance games in it. We just did it. We understood. You, give the audience some credit. They're not completely morons. So calling it something completely different may not be called the Switch. Um, that might be a thing that was for the Switch. NX, maybe it still does similar things, but maybe the focus is on it more as a handheld, like the Switch Pro here, like the Steam Deck. Like, it's cool. Let me wipe this off, a little dusty. It is cool that I can hook this up to a TV or a monitor and pull my controller out and play it, but I don't do it that often. I love playing on this itself. And I think, you know, not emphasizing the Switch this time, switching from handheld to the TV, is not a bad thing. I mean, obviously, this still, you put your HDMI in right there, in the USB port here, and it I can play it on my TV. I can play it on the monitor behind me, and I do. Uh, but I mostly play handheld on this. I like the option, but the main gaming I do is on the handheld. And if Nintendo does that with their next console, they don't have to call it a Switch. They can just call it like I said, the NX, and it'll still play your Switch games, and you'll understand that once you get it, because it has a little Switch game slot. But that's not the emphasis. The emphasis is, you know, a handheld setup. Um, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Anything else you guys have to say before I bounce out of here? I legit hope it won't be called the Switch 2 or Switch anything. Yeah, there's a very good chance it won't be called Switch anything. It could just be a completely different name. Some people are like, oh, I love Super Nintendo Switch. Well, again, that sounds good because you love the Super Nintendo. But that might be confusing to the market. Um, and marketing is always going to be important. Even if that's a confusing name, you just got to market it right for people to get what it is. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't called a Switch. It might be something completely different. We just assume it's going to be called a Switch because it's very likely going to be a handheld again, but it may not be. Yeah. Retro Death, thanks for streaming T. Thanks for watching Retro. I appreciate you. I know you're like in a crazier time zone. Or are you still in the States or did you go back? I don't remember. The way I want to launch to go Metro Prime 4 a little more before launch day, Mario Kart Summertime, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess Holiday, Super Mario something. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. That's not bad at all. That would be a great launch. And something's a surprise. The way Splatoon was a surprise on the Wii U. Something new that's a surprise. I'll be down for it too. Now I'm literally at work right now, so you're very productive right now. I see. So yeah, so you are in the wee hours of the morning where you are. So thanks for joining. And again, I think it was good. Good money now. Thanks again for the donation. I appreciate that a lot. I'm going to be doing these more often. I would like to not have to work as much as I do. I don't really have to, but if I could, make this a good side hustle. Obviously, I just love doing these videos and doing these streams and stuff. But if it could, I could do a lot more if I'm on and doing well with views and all that good stuff, getting that back up. So yeah, but that's for another day. But anyway, thank you guys all for joining. I appreciate it. I appreciate the views. And maybe we'll grow and get more and more, and I can do some cool stuff here. So all right, that's it. Thanks for watching, and see you poofs next time. Peace out. And now the awkward transition. Where is it? All right, peace.